You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
The DMV has established itself as a top-tier player in the global cyber industry. DMV Rising is the premier event for cyber leaders and innovators to engage in meaningful discussions and celebrate the innovation happening in and around the Washington, D.C. area. Join us on Thursday, September 18th to connect with the leading minds shaping our field and experience firsthand why the Washington, D.C. region is the beating heart of cyber innovation. Visit dmvrising.com to secure your spot. Think your certificate security is covered? By March 2026, TLS certificate lifespans will be cut in half, meaning double today's renewals. And in 2029, certificates will expire every 47 days, demanding between 8 and 12 times the renewal volume. That's exponential complexity, operational workload, and risk, unless you modernize your strategy. CyberArk, proven in identity security, is your partner in certificate security. CyberArk simplifies lifecycle management with visibility, automation, and control at scale. Master the 47-day shift with CyberArk. Scan for vulnerabilities, streamline operations, scale security. Visit cyberark.com/47day. That's cyberark.com/47day. Salt Typhoon marks China's most ambitious campaign yet. A major Google outage hits Southeastern Europe. A critical zero-day flaw in FreePBX gets patched. Scattered Lapsus Hunters claim the Jaguar Land Rover hack. Researchers uncover a major evolution in the XWorm backdoor campaign. GhostRedirector is a new China-aligned threat actor. CISA adds a pair of TP-Link router flaws to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog. The feds put a $10 million bounty on 3 Russian FSB officers. Experts warn sweeping cuts to ODNI could cripple U.S. cyber defense. Our guest is Rick Kaun, Global Director of Cybersecurity Services at Rockwell Automation, discussing the OT-IT convergence in securing critical water and wastewater systems. And Google says rumors of Gmail's breach are greatly exaggerated. It's Thursday, September 4th, 2025. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. It's great, as always, to have you with us. The New York Times weighs in on Salt Typhoon, reminding us that for decades, China has targeted U.S. companies and infrastructure through hacking. But the Salt Typhoon cyber attack marks its most ambitious campaign yet. Investigators say the state-backed operation, uncovered last year, infiltrated telecommunications and other sectors in over 80 countries, potentially affecting nearly every American. Unlike past hacks aimed at specific targets, Salt Typhoon was broad and indiscriminate, sweeping up vast amounts of data that could let Chinese intelligence track politicians, spies, and activists worldwide. Western allies, including the U.S., UK, Germany, Japan, and others, issued a rare joint statement condemning the attack, calling it unrestrained. Experts say the campaign reflects China's growing cyber sophistication, shifting from theft of trade secrets to deep, long-term infiltration of global communication networks to gain strategic advantage. A major Google outage hit Southeastern Europe and parts of the Caucasus earlier today, disrupting daily life and work across several countries, including Bulgaria, Turkey, and Greece. Reports flooded social media and Down Detector as users struggled with core Google services. YouTube, Google Maps, Search, Gmail, and Drive all experienced significant failures, with YouTube and Maps hardest hit. Error messages showed 5xx server errors, pointing to issues on Google's end rather than local connections. Sangoma has issued emergency patches for a critical zero-day flaw in FreePBX with a CVSS score of 10. The bug, caused by poor sanitation of user input, allows attackers to access the administrator panel, manipulate databases, and execute remote code. Exploited in the wild since at least August 21st, the flaw impacts multiple versions. Sangoma advises restricting admin access, updating immediately, and applying firewall protections. CISA added the bug to its known exploited vulnerabilities list, mandating federal fixes by September 19th. We reported yesterday that Jaguar Land Rover suffered a major cyber attack that halted production at multiple plants. A group of young hackers calling themselves Scattered Lapsus Hunters claimed responsibility on Telegram, sharing screenshots allegedly from JLR's internal IT systems. The gang, linked to past attacks on UK retailers and tied to the youth cybercrime network The Calm, is reportedly attempting to extort JLR. While the company has not confirmed data theft, it shut down systems to contain the incident and is working to restore operations. Security experts believe the hackers accessed sensitive internal systems. The Information Commissioner's Office is assessing JLR's report, while authorities remain concerned about rising threats from youth-led cyber gangs. Researchers at Trellix have uncovered a major evolution in the XWorm backdoor campaign, signaling a strategic shift in its deployment tactics. Once reliant on predictable phishing and email vectors, XWorm now employs deceptive methods such as disguised executables and multi-stage infection chains to evade detection. The malware disables firewalls, bypasses PowerShell protections, and establishes persistence through registry edits and scheduled tasks. Using Ringdale encryption combined with base64 encoding, it conceals critical command and control data while evading analysis with sandbox checks and mutex creation. Beyond persistence, XWorm offers extensive backdoor capabilities, including system shutdowns, data theft, DDoS attacks, and remote file execution. Security experts warn its growing sophistication and prevalence highlight the urgent need for layered defenses and proactive detection strategies. ESET research has uncovered a new China-aligned threat actor dubbed GhostRedirector, which compromised at least 65 Windows servers, primarily in Brazil, Thailand, and Vietnam, between December 2024 and June of this year. Its toolkit includes Rungun, a passive C++ backdoor for remote code execution, and Gamshen, a malicious IIS module engineered to manipulate Google search results for SEO fraud, serving altered content only to Googlebot promoting gambling websites. Attackers leverage public exploits like EFS Potato and Bad Potato to escalate privileges, install web shells, create administrator accounts, and maintain persistence. The group's favored entry point appears to be SQL injection, followed by PowerShell downloads. Comprising custom tools and fallback mechanisms, GhostRedirector demonstrates significant operational resilience, impacting diverse sectors including healthcare, education, insurance, transportation, and retail. CISA has added 2 TP-Link router flaws to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog after evidence of in-the-wild attacks. The bugs include an authentication bypass exposing credentials and a command injection flaw enabling remote code execution. Multiple models are impacted, many of which are end-of-life. Though no public exploitation reports exist, TP-Link linked activity to the Quad 7 botnet tied to China-linked Storm 0940. Federal agencies must patch or mitigate by September 24th. The U.S. State Department is offering up to $10 million for information on 3 Russian FSB officers, Marat Chukov, Mikhail Gavrilov, and Pavel Akolov, linked to cyber attacks against U.S. critical infrastructure. Members of FSB's Center 16, also known as Berserk Bear, Dragonfly, and Koala Team, the trio was charged in 2022 for a campaign that targeted agencies like the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and energy firms, including Wolf Creek Nuclear. More recently, they exploited a vulnerability in Cisco devices to infiltrate infrastructure, telecom, education, and manufacturing networks worldwide. The group has also targeted over 500 energy companies in 135 countries. Rewards for Justice is accepting anonymous tips, offering potential relocation. This follows June's similar bounty for Russian hackers tied to the Red Line info stealer. In an editorial titled Cutting Cyber Intelligence Undermines National Security, Sophie McDowell and retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery warn that sweeping reductions to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence are crippling the U.S.'s cyber defense amid rising threats from Russia, China, and Iran. The downsizing, part of the ODNI 2.0 plan, includes slashing over 40% of staff and shutting down key units like the Cyber Threat Intelligence Integration Center and the Foreign Malign Influence Center, both critical to coordinating threat intelligence and countering foreign influence operations. The authors argue these cuts will fragment intelligence sharing and leave the nation vulnerable, calling for continued support of these capabilities rather than discontinuing them. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Rick Kaun, Global Director of Cybersecurity Services at Rockwell Automation. We're discussing securing critical water and wastewater systems. And Google says rumors of Gmail's breach are greatly exaggerated. Stay with us. At Thales, they know cybersecurity can be tough and you can't protect everything. But with Thales, you can secure what matters most. With Thales's industry-leading platforms, you can protect critical applications, data, and identities, anywhere and at scale with the highest ROI. That's why the most trusted brands and largest banks, retailers, and healthcare companies in the world rely on Thales to protect what matters most: applications, data, and identity. That's Thales. THALES. Learn more at thalesgroup.com/cyber. And now, a word from our sponsor, ThreatLocker, the powerful zero-trust enterprise solution that stops ransomware in its tracks. Allow Listing is a deny-by-default software that makes application control simple and fast. Ring fencing is an application containment strategy, ensuring apps can only access the files, registry keys, network resources, and other applications they truly need to function. Shut out cybercriminals with world-class endpoint protection from ThreatLocker. Rick Kaun is Global Director of Cybersecurity Services at Rockwell Automation. I recently caught up with him to discuss IT and OT convergence in securing critical water and wastewater systems.
So convergence is actually, unfortunately, not unique to a particular industry. I think in the case of water and wastewater, it's maybe even more acutely difficult, simply because water and wastewater are typically much smaller, municipally funded, don't necessarily have the deep bench strength and budgets and wallets to have both IT and OT practitioners, each with expertise in their own areas. The general notion of IT-OT convergence is when we have an OT environment, it kind of looks and feels like IT, but it's not. There's the antiquated nature of some of the systems. There's the fragility and the potential environmental or safety impacts of knocking something offline. There's, of course, the whole third rail we call, which is the non-traditional IT equipment, like PLCs and controllers that are also in that environment, but are Ethernet enabled. And so the notion of IT/OT convergence is, how do we effectively take IT practice into an OT environment safely? Because we have to do things differently. And that's where the magic comes from, is when I can find a way to blend those two skill sets to solve problems, we start to win. With water and wastewater, and budget and access to resources, it becomes even more unique of a challenge to try and figure out how to do it.
Well, the folks who are finding success here, what are the common elements?
Well, in any industry that with the convergence, you have to start with data. So many, and I've been doing this for 25 years, and I joke that when people start to figure out this, I keep saying the same things for 25 years. I won't have a job any longer, is because it boils down to the same challenges and the same reasons, the same side of that fence, if you will, the IT, the OT side, and it boils down to data, but not just a list. It's contextual data. What I mean by that, and I think it's important to delineate, is that contextual data means I can't just have a list of assets. I can't just have a list of vulns. I need to know much more about that asset to make an informed decision. I.e., I need to know what that asset's particular function in this facility. So for water and wastewater, or is it a venting or an emergency release, or is it something to do with my chemicals for treatment, and is it something to do with the way that we're moving product from place to place, verification and various sensors for levels and measures, et cetera. Because when you look at the risk, that's one thing, and that's the IT side. But the OT can tell you, yeah, but that's a really key component to this process, or it only goes down, or can have this happen to it, or whatever. And that's where you then start to find the magic of, okay, I can't go with plan A, which is make everything Windows 11 and patch on Tuesday. What do I need? What do I need to do next? And so the short answer is, when you get people from either side of that fence and you're looking at something in its native environment and its actual impact and function, you start to have a way more informed and more intelligent discussion, and can come up with reasonable paths forward, as opposed to just either giving up or trying to force fit things.
Who typically bears the burden of having to learn what's on the other side of that fence between IT and OT?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of our webinars that was very successful a few years ago was IT's from Mars and OT's from Venus, right? A play on the men and women thing.
Right.
Because of that, in every single organization, different people, different politics, different budgets usually sort of dictate that before we get there. We are seeing IT being expected from the board, and more consistently being forced to try and figure out what's on that other side. And in the past, when IT was trying to do that, they'd often put up a firewall and just say, well, whatever's on the other side is not our problem. But boards and insurers aren't accepting that disclaimer as much anymore. So we're seeing the decision making for what to do and how to do it, who to bring in, like a trusted partner like Rockwell or something, more coming from an IT source. But at the end of the day, what you do and how you do it is still, operations are always king. I mean, we went into a facility that IT didn't bother telling OT we were coming in. We had to step back and pause the program while we stepped away and let the parents have their battle royal sort of thing and figure out who's who in the zoo before we came back a couple of weeks later and re-engaged, right? So it's not always clear. We get called from both sides, and in a lot of cases, it's not entirely decided, and they kind of figure it out as they go sometimes, unfortunately. But the short answer is it's both, and it depends on the org and how senior the practice is. It typically, you get pulls in from the OT side if OT is leading and being mature and proactive. But if not, and it's being forced from above, it usually comes from the IT side.
Help me understand the difference between, let's say, a new facility that is starting from square one in, I'll put air quotes around, in modern times, and a legacy system that may have been around for decades. I mean, I imagine we have water systems in some cities that go back over 100 years.
Yes, and we even have some that we still see Windows 95 and 98 at. But unfortunately, true. I love the question, and it gets to some of the crux here. And it's twofold. Typically, the old school, brownfield, if you will, 50, 60, 100-year-old facility, there's a lot of complexity in there. And there needs to be even more so that context to be able to make intelligent, informed decisions. And those are very, very difficult. But when you have the context, you can do it, right? We have clients that everything in OT isn't about first pass risk reduction. It's about second and third and fourth and layers of, digital twin and redundancy on HMIs and microsegmentation. So you need in a existing facility with complex systems or older systems and maybe a blend of different types of systems, much more of that because it's much more useful. Now, on the greenfield side, you can typically build something new and exciting. I've seen a few plans recently for some new factories and groundbreaking things. Everybody's going after the, factory of the future and digital 4.0 and all this other stuff where you have not only process optimization and minimal footprint, but you also have it done securely because you're relying on multiple other external sources to help you get faster, better, more secure, et cetera. The reality, though, is that in a lot of the new greenfields, and this is going away, but it's not universal, is that when you write a spec for a process, you usually write for what your throughput is, your temperature, your geographic, or your floor space, footprint, et cetera, and operating temperatures and whatnot. Very mechanical and physical and engineering type of requirements. What often doesn't get put in there is, and by the way, you shall follow these security standards and expectations to put it in. When I was at Honeywell, albeit 15 years ago, we would always put the cybersecurity portion as an optional line item with a separate cost. So when we went against other OEMs, we were at least minimum compliant bid head to head. And when they bought the spinning equipment, we were at least competitive. But when you wanted the add-on, the feature after, it was usually tacked on at the end or maybe not even adopted, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's a better level of adoption and awareness and expectation now, but I still go to many trade shows and say, how many of you have cybersecurity language in your procurement specs? And only about half the room puts their hands up.
Wow. So what are your recommendations then for folks to have best practices, given the reality of limited budgets, limited time, limited resources? What are your words of wisdom here?
So everybody's doing something a little bit here, there, and wherever, day in and day out. It's not like these facilities are doing nothing. What I would really challenge people to do, especially when they're struggling, is always look towards the problem as part of a program, right? I know it sounds very contrite, but the reality is, if I decide on what I need for an inventory today, and I'm very immature, I'm primarily looking at inventory so that I can see how many systems do I have, how many I need to track vulnerabilities and patches against, how many do I need to go and look up, for Rockwell, any product notices or what have you. But that's a very first phase view. If I'm not looking while I'm looking at that inventory towards step 2, 3, and 4, which is wanting to work on lifecycle management and capital replacement of old antiquated equipment that can't handle or manage modern security controls. Or if I want to know how to do a backup and restoration plan, I'm not going to back up everything fully and store it offsite daily because not every system is created equal. They have different levels of impact and different levels of repercussion. So start to build any step you make today, a decision you make today needs to be in support of what your ultimate goal is. And then once you start to get that inventory and that context at a much more granular view, you've not only got a better understanding of what you need to do, you've got a better chance of making a business case to go to management and say, look, here's the risk we think we have. We're not trying to boil the ocean. We're not trying to make everything without risk. But now that we've got an idea as to the context of how many assets I have and what their end of life status is and how many volumes and expectations and how well I'm able to back them up. And by the way, 4 or 5 of these are mission critical. You now have the ability to potentially get some more budget or municipal funding to start to put in maybe a managed service or some of these boutique sort of offerings that are helping to come in and we'll have the expertise and we'll give it to you in a periodic phase that you need. And then we'll get out of the way. So you don't have to onboard people, but you're right sizing your program by understanding the context. I mean, nobody goes to zero risk in an operational environment. The challenge is how much do I have and how far do I need to go and how much will that cost me? And that context helps you decide where to spend the day. It also helps you build a business case.
That's Rick Kaun from Rockwell Automation.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso, and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
And finally, reports of a catastrophic Gmail breach had the internet clutching its digital pearls this week, with headlines warning all 2.5 billion users to reset their passwords immediately. Some cybersecurity firms even joined the chorus, amplifying what seemed like an urgent warning from Google. We reported the story here. There's one problem. Google never said that. In a politely exasperated blog post, the company clarified that Gmail wasn't hacked, the password reset alert never existed, and contrary to rumor, the sky remains firmly in place. Google reminded everyone that Gmail blocks over 99.9% of phishing and malware and suggested passkeys for extra safety. The incident is a good reminder that it's easy to get caught up in the hype of a breathless story, and it would do us all well to pause, take a breath, and do some fact-checking. And that's the Cyberwire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. N2K's senior producer is Alice Carruth. Our Cyberwire producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Trey Hester with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.